Hello and welcome back to another impromptu video. This week I'd like to talk about what makes the OSR style old Dungeons and Dragons games, in my opinion, better to run at times than newer edition games. I did a video recently on Pathfinder, which is exceedingly structured, and they say it's got a rule for nearly everything, which it does. Like even the I'm exploring along and I'm looking out for traps is a specific action in Pathfinder, for example, as is I'm holding my shield up as we're exploring, and that there's all these specific actions. Well, and there's not so much in 5th edition's Dungeons and Dragons. It is a bit more free form, whereas Pathfinder is very regimented. But then if you've got Pathfinder as very much rules for everything, and then you could say 5th edition, the newer edition, is still got quite a few rules, but it's a bit more freeform. You could say OSR is the most freeform of the lot, and it is. For example, I remember some people, say for example, you've got somebody who wants to balance on a tightrope or something like that, or they're balancing on a wall they're walking past. 5th edition, you might make an acrobatics check, and you might make something similar in Pathfinder, and you might need to get degrees of success in Pathfinder, and 5th edition, so and so. In old school OSR D&D, you might do a roll underneath the dexterity attribute if you want. I know some people in the old days used to do breath weapon saves for dexterity, or they might do a save versus death or anything just to save, or they might assign a percentile chance to that roll if it was a thief, or they might just make something up on the spot. But that is the beauty of the OSR game. Whilst there is more variation in rulings between tables, it's much more freeform for the dungeon master to say, yeah, okay, so you want to chat up the barmaid there, dear, then let's make an NPC reaction roll because you want to talk up the lady behind the bar, or whoever. You want to talk to somebody and you want to impress them. Let's make a reaction roll from your charisma roll. And they could make that up. And there was no set in stone rules for that in the old days. It was sort of make it up as you go along. And a lot of people came to the same conclusions, but there were no set in stone rules. And as a dungeon master, I must say it's a lot easier to say, okay, tell you what, we're going to make this up at this time. And you don't get somebody at the table going, well, actually, if we turn to page 82 of the player's handbook, you will find that it is listed that you cannot do that action with a bonus action because this is also actually counted as a bonus action. And thus, it is not possible for you to sustain the activity in the mode required for the particular outcome that you're wishing to maintain at the present moment. And actually, may I add that I believe that this rule is outdated by the new errata in the Dungeon Master's Guide 2, which is coming out. And you know what I'm saying? You just get people that are just absolutely go with the rules because the rules are set out. And some people love that and some people need that. And actually, I would say, therefore, Pathfinder 2nd edition is a very good game if you like those rules, because they are so set out in stone. And it reminds me almost of wargaming, where you've got specific rules for specific units and you get so many actions and you get free actions and things like that. And even Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, less so. You can play it that way if you want, and you don't have to play it so much that way. But old editions Dungeons and Dragons is just so much more freeform. OSR style games are so freeform, and they leave it to you to decide, which is what Dungeons and Dragons always used to be to me growing up. Here are some rules. Here are the outline of these rules. Now go play with them and do what you want with them. And that's what it was. And we all did. And so that's why every table had different rules, because we all did play with those rules in a different way. And then it got a lot more structured, I think, with 3rd edition, a bit more structured, more skills and things. And 4th edition was way structured. I think 4th edition is a bit similar to Pathfinder in those manners, though I do think Pathfinder is a much better version of 4th edition if you were going to compare the two. However, it then went back a little bit more to its roots. It was a little bit more freeform with 5th edition, which is why I enjoy playing 5th edition. If you're going to run 5th edition or OSR, I'll play either, and I'll play Pathfinder 2e. In fact, I really want to run a little campaign of it because I like the structure too. I love it all. However, again, from an OSR base where I come from, the simplicity of just running an OSR game is like nothing compared to any other edition of the game. I know in my head how I need that role to be, and I know the rough difficulty of the monsters, and I just know it. And I think maybe there's an advantage I have with it because I've known it for a long time. Whereas with 5th edition, especially going up in levels, I'm not sure of what monsters to put through to people, and sometimes I might get corrected about rules calls I've made. And I know they say, oh, well, the actual end ruling is what the ruling is of the table, and the DM's rule is final. But sometimes you might say something to a player, which is, and they've got in their head the ruling, and you disagree. And it might be that your ruling is the final arbiter. Of course it is. But in their head, if they've read the rules and there's specific rules for these and you do it wrongly, they might understandably be a little bit aggrieved by why hasn't they ruled it in that way, which is what it's written in the book. And especially with Pathfinder, because, God, there's rules. However, in OSR, it's more accepted that you're going to make it up as you go along. And I think also that OSR would actually be an easier D&D for a beginner to actually run. And maybe I'm leaving myself open there, but I think an OSR D&D is a little bit easier for, like I said, a beginner to run. There's less rules. There's just, roll to hit. Do you want to do something? Let's make up a rule of how you do that. You want to run through somebody's legs and then chop your sword up through their midriff. All right, make the roll. Let's do a dexterity roll on top of the attack roll. Or maybe you'll do an attack roll, which is at a major disadvantage before you do that. Everybody'd rule it differently, but there's no wrong way to rule it. That's the point. There was no wrong way to rule anything. Well, unless you're stupidly off base, like you want to charm the dragon, so you're going to use a dexterity saving based throw or dexterity roll. That might not make sense unless you're doing a funny dance. But there is really no wrong way to rule it, and you could get away with a lot in old D&D. Obviously, it's a lot more deadly, so you could potentially kill the party, but that's fine because that's how we used to play it. Anyway, so those are my thoughts. This isn't the longest video, but those are my thoughts on old school OSR, and I just wanted to get out there how, because I've been reading Pathfinder more recently, and I do enjoy it, don't get me wrong, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's very heavily structured though, like you need to give the players a magic item by this level, and if you don't, it will upset the balance of the game if you do not. So make sure they get a +1 magic weapon by the time they get to 2nd level or at 2nd level, and if you don't, blah blah blah. And 5th edition is less like that, but it would like you to give them maybe a +1 magic weapon by 2nd, 3rd level. I tend to give them. OSR, you're not restricted by these rules, and that's what I like about it, and that is why I will always love OSR. And if I'm in a pinch, I can run an OSR game at the drop of a hat, and it doesn't matter which one it could be. It could be Osric, it could be Old School Essentials, it could be something based on it, more like Castles and Crusades or Basic Fantasy RPG, could be Rules Cyclopedia, could be any other type of old edition D&D. But for a quick, dirty game of D&D, you cannot beat it. And I invite you to just go out there, get yourself an OSR game. White box medieval fantasy game. I think I've mentioned it before. You can get it for £4 off Amazon, something like that. It's a fantasy game that you can just play with your friends, get your family around, play that. Or Basic Fantasy RPG, slightly newer mechanics mixed with the old school vibe. Get it out. Play. Just play. Have a nice game. Anyway, much love to everybody. Thank you for watching this video. Thanks for hearing me just opine, and I don't know if opine's the right word, but I just think about these things and just hear my thoughts on the process. What do you think? Do you think it's easier to run these OSR games, old school games? I do read the comments. As you see, if people comment, I tend to try and respond to nearly every single one, and I do really appreciate comments and debate about the game industry as it is. So please do comment. Please, leave a like so other people might see it. It does help the algorithm, and that's nice because more people can see, more people can join in the debate, and more people can talk. I'm not doing this because I want to make lots of money off YouTube. I have a full-time job. It's just nice to share it with people. Anyway, again, thanks for everyone. Take care and bye-bye.